Hi there, it's Graham Brown from mobileYouth. I'm joined by my colleague, Freddie Benjamin. Freddie, how are you doing?
Doing well, thank you, Graham.
Okay, let's talk anthropology and ethnography. These are quite fashionable terms in research, Freddie, but really, are they applicable to the digital realm? What do you think?
That's a really good question. Anthropology has been used in the business world for a very long time, I think since the mid 80s. But only very recently, when by recently I mean in the last decade, has it actually been used in the field of technology. And the use of anthropology and ethnography for technology has been mostly in the so-called emerging markets where
Right.
big brands like Nokia and Microsoft have been trying to innovate because they see the market as something they don't understand, so they need to find out if the same products that they sell in more advanced markets like the US and the Western Europe would sell in emerging markets like India, South Africa, Kenya,
Right.
or Indonesia.
So, okay, we'll talk about the whys and wherefores in a minute. Give us some examples of how Nokia and Microsoft have used ethnography and anthropology in their sort of product development, not just in their research, but actually created products out of this stuff.
Definitely. I mean, Nokia has sort of been in the forefront of using ethnography in emerging markets for the last 10 years. Um, about 5 years ago, Nokia introduced the 1100 phone in emerging markets like India and Indonesia, which has been one of the biggest selling phones in all of mobile phone history. And that phone was basically created on the back of some very deep ethnographic research they did in emerging markets. They had anthropologists who were sent out and embedded in the field, and they basically spent, you know, time. And this is sort of like this actually were living with rural villagers in India. And what they figured out was that for the consumers in the rural villages of India, um, features like touchscreen or instant messaging were not really important. But what they would value are features like a built-in flashlight or a very sturdy outer casing that is dust protective, or
Mm.
especially a very long battery life. And these are very deep insights that Nokia got from their ethnographic research, which then went on to contribute to the creation of the 1100 phone, and that became a big hit. And after that, we saw brands like Samsung and LG follow in Nokia's footsteps and release, these cheap handsets or so-called cheap handsets with longer battery lives and
Hmm.
um, yeah, and a sturdier build. And that's just one
Mm.
of the examples.
And as you say, it was a hugely popular phone, and it was a very basic phone too. And there's been examples not just in mobile as well. Microsoft have used have developed it as well with the multi touch point device. Sorry, the multi point mouse, right?
Exactly, yeah. And this is a really great story as well. When Microsoft sent its anthropologists out in the villages of India, what they found out was that in schools where resources were very scarce, they had a very small budget, but they still had a PC there. They had about 5 kids working on the same PC. And seeing that,
Mm.
what Microsoft thought of was let's create basically, or basically invent this multi-touch mice, which is 5 different mice work on the same PC. So 5 kids working on the same PC can actually collaborate with each other rather than have to fight
Right.
over who gets the control of the PC.
Mm. Okay, so let me put this question to you. We can understand the power of ethnography and anthropology, and we've seen products that have come out of it. Is it really only appropriate to emerging markets?
Well, I guess that's sort of like the misconception that the business world has when it comes to anthropology and ethnography, because the field itself, has a long history of going to remote cultures and embedding the
Mm.
researchers in that culture and doing an ethnography of that culture. So when it comes to more advanced markets, I guess the perception is that the marketers and the product developers, the engineers, they know the customers because they are the customers. And there's this tendency to overlook ethnography and really try and understand what is the customer's need, in the advanced markets.
Okay, so it can work in developed markets. We've seen examples, as we talked about in our other books, like with Pure Digital's Flip, the handheld video camera, which they used ethnography to really work out that young people didn't have on them at any time cables to connect their video cameras to their computers. They didn't have these USB cables, so they developed this pop-out USB adapter, which got adopted by other products. Like Kodak had it in their cameras as well later on. So it does work in developed markets as much as it does in developing markets. And we're also seeing some interesting developments as well in these sort of emerging markets with stuff that's emerged from ethnographic research, which is potentially of use to the developed world. I mean, look at the payment systems that are popular in East Africa at the moment. Where do you think that's going to go?
And that's a really interesting case study right now. Because in East Africa, what mobile payments does, it allows the people, young and adults both, access to the financial system because it's very difficult to open a bank account there, and ATMs are very rare. Now, the real reason why it's successful in East Africa is because there's social context there, for mobile payment to exist and grow. Now we need to find a similar social context in the advanced markets. Just having another payment option alongside cash and card and even online payments is not enough to make mobile payments a success. There needs to be a social context. Why is it that people would use mobile to pay for their coffee, the grocery, their gas over, say, card? And we need to build a social context for that instead of just putting the technology out there.
Right, and it's more than just price and convenience, and that's sort of where anthropology and ethnography comes in, isn't it? Because once you're embedded in the culture, you understand what the local significances and patterns of behavior are, right? You understand what that context is, which is exactly it's lost when you develop products in isolation. Okay, good. So that was Freddie Benjamin from mobileYouth talking about anthropology and ethnography in the field of mobile and innovation. You've been listening to the mobileYouth. If you want to find out more, go to www.mobileyouth.org.